Hello and welcome. My name is Inez Galindo, HSE Manager with Crosby Energy Services. Today I want to show you a video of what all takes place during a flowback rig up. See, many times we hire employees with little flowback experience. If you're one of these employees, I want to provide you with some insight and information that will help you work safe and also determine if this is what you want to do with your career. Before we get into more details, here is a message from Shell representative George Benavente.
Hi, my name is George Benavente. I'm with Shell Flowback and I'm the field foreman. I started out in slick line and wireline and moved on from there into the flowback. Flowback is the process in between the well being drilled and completed and into production. What you'll be doing as a rig up, rig down hand is basically constructing and putting all our piping together. So that's piping, flowback equipment such as separators, sand traps, flares. This is physical work, it's hard labor, you're in the elements. There's definitely a path you can take to make it a career. Depending on your work ethic, you can move from rig up into the flowback, then from the flowback into lead, and then from lead into staff positions. We need somebody that doesn't mind work, that understands we're going to be in the elements, regardless of your experience, that we are here to coach you up and teach you how to work safely and to get the job done. So working for Shell, you'll notice immediately that we have a different working culture than other places you've probably experienced. We preach safety and we believe in safety, and we expect everyone to go home the same way they came to work. We live by three principles: safety, people, and delivery. Safety should be the forefront of every conversation and every thought before we start any work. People is where we respect one another and treat each other as adults and as human beings, and delivery is where we follow through and do what we say we're going to do. So we've prepared a video that will walk you through a day in the life of a rig up, rig down hand. Enjoy the video.
In this video, we'll cover 5 major parts of the flowback rig up process. These 5 components include getting started, transporting the equipment, unloading the equipment, rigging up the equipment, and finally, testing the equipment. So, sit back, relax, and enjoy this video. Getting started. In this part, we'll talk about our morning meeting, PPE, equipment, loading equipment, and even securing the load. Remember, by having a good start, you are setting the tone for the rest of the day. The pre-job meeting usually takes place early in the morning prior to starting any work. In this meeting, which is led by a supervisor, starts by discussing the 7-step safe work strategy, which includes planning, communicating, checking equipment, preparing the work area, controlling energy by performing the lockout-tagout process, doing a final check, and starting work. During this meeting, workers have the opportunity to discuss any recent observations or voice any concerns they may have associated with the work plan for the day. This is also a great opportunity for recognitions to take place. Inspecting PPE. Every employee is required to inspect their PPE before starting any work. The minimum PPE required for most flowback rig up jobs is a hard hat, safety glasses, FRCs, an H2S monitor, gloves, steel-toed boots, and hearing protection like earplugs. Additional PPE may be required depending on the work being performed. If you have any questions regarding the inspection of your PPE, please contact your supervisor. Fall protection. For employees in general industry, the height is 4 feet above a lower level. If fall protection is required, the employee must be trained, certified, and authorized to work at heights. Selecting equipment. The required equipment is based on a standard package developed by managers and engineers. The flowback supervisor will relate this information to the job coordinators and yard supervisors. A list of the required equipment is then created. Checking bands on equipment. Every piece of piping will have a band with an engraved date of when the last certification was done. The certification is usually good for 1 year. If the certification is expired, that piece of equipment will not be used. Workers will check the dates on the band before transporting the equipment to the job site.
So this is a no-go ring. If this goes through the 1502 pipe, it's no good. So, and if it gets, for example, stuck like this, pipe is good to be used. But if it goes all the way through, pipe's no good. So we don't use it.
To determine how the equipment is to be loaded, we look at the size, weight, and shape of the equipment. Per OSHA regulation, no one person is allowed to lift more than 50 pounds. If a mechanical lift cannot be utilized, 2 people should be used to lift the load. When a piece of equipment has an odd shape, even if the load does not exceed 50 pounds, it is recommended to use 2 people to lift the load. If a forklift is going to be utilized, the operator has to be trained, certified, and authorized to operate the machine. Usually, our customer will require a special attachment when loading pipe to help prevent pipe from rolling off the forks. Loading equipment into trailers. Always use the safest manner possible. If hand loading the equipment, remember to get as close to the load as possible. Keep your elbows and arms close to your body. Keep your back straight during the lift, bending at the knees and keeping the load as close and centered in front of you. Get a good hand hold and firm grip. Never twist while lifting. Always avoid walking backwards with the load. Properly securing your load. Before securing your load, inspect your straps and chains and make sure they are in good working condition. If you see any defects, they should be replaced immediately. Always have plenty of straps available in case they are needed. Transporting equipment. In this part, we'll talk about the following: pre-trip inspections, selecting the safest routes, obeying the speed limits, encountering bad roads, signing in with the PIC or the person in charge, using a spotter while backing up, and conducting the 360 walk around. Remember, the most dangerous thing we do in our job is drive. Pre-trip inspections. A pre-trip inspection is required by every driver operating a commercial vehicle. The inspection should include, but is not limited to, checking all fluid levels, tires, belts, hoses, lights, and any emergency equipment such as a fire extinguisher. The load should also be checked to make sure it is properly secured. Any damage or issues needing attention should be addressed before departure. This is for the safety of the public and the driver. Selecting the safest route to location. Selecting the safest route to location is important. The shortest route is not always the safest route. Avoid heavy traffic and construction zones when possible. Many cities have a loop, also known as a truck route, that you must take to avoid driving through city traffic. If a journey management plan is required, it must be completed and approved before departure. Obeying the speed limit. Always obey the posted speed limit on all roads and highways. Speed is a major contributing factor in crash fatalities, so slow down. If you're driving in inclement weather, you may have to drive below the posted speed limit. In some of these roads, the speed limit may not be posted. In this case, follow the default speed limit of 20 miles per hour. Encountering bad roads. If you are driving on bad roads, it is always best to slow down. At your first opportunity, stop at a safe location and conduct a 360 walk around to check that your load is still secured. Signing in with the person in charge, also known as the PIC. Upon arrival, you may have to sign in with the PIC. This person is usually in the command center at the entrance of the location. The PIC will discuss the hazards on location and will relate any important information pertaining to your safety. You may have to sign more than one document, such as a signing sheet and a JSA. The signing sheet will be utilized to conduct a head count in case of emergency evacuation. Backing up with the trailer. Whenever possible, it is best to avoid backing up. Over 30% of vehicle incidents in the industry occur while backing up. If you must back up, always use a spotter who has been trained. The spotter must never be in the line of fire or in a situation where he or she could be caught in between or crushed. The spotter must remain visible to the driver at all times. The driver must turn off the radio and roll down the windows for situational awareness. The 360 walk around. Once you are parked, engage your parking brake before exiting your vehicle. Always place your vehicle cones out and conduct a 360 walk around. By doing this, you are making sure you did not lose any equipment during your trip and that your trip was a success without incident. Remember to chock your wheels to prevent your vehicle from rolling in case of a mechanical failure. This will conclude your trip to location. Unloading the equipment. In this part, we'll talk about the following: assessing the area, filling out a JSA, determining if a mechanical device is needed, unloading the equipment, and spotting the equipment or laying it on the ground. Assessing the area. Prior to starting any work, several workers should take the time to assess the work area to look for potential hazards such as uneven surfaces, trip hazards, or biological hazards such as snakes and scorpions. These hazards should be included and discussed in the JSA. Filling out a JSA is extremely important. It is not a job step, but it is part of the process. A JSA is basically looking at each job step for the work that will take place, identifying and analyzing the hazards, and then mitigating those hazards. Once the JSA is filled out, a tailgate meeting will take place to discuss the JSA. Every worker who participated in the JSA tailgate meeting will sign the JSA document. It is recommended that every worker participates in the JSA discussion and be vocal. If there is a change in conditions, such as weather, or the job scope changes, or if new personnel is brought in, either JSA will have to be revised or a new JSA be filled out. To determine if a mechanical device will be needed, we look at the weight, shape, and size of the equipment. For pipe on a monorail, workers will use a buddy system to unload it. For heavier equipment such as an ESD valve, a hoist or an auto crane will be utilized. Prior to using any mechanical device, a pre-use inspection should be done and documented. Unloading equipment. Once you determine how the equipment is going to be unloaded, proceed with the plan. Always be aware of your surroundings, watch for hand placement, and use proper lifting techniques to avoid a back injury. Never get in a rush. Always use good communication during this job step. If a mechanical device such as a forklift is being utilized, follow your company's best practices and life-saving rules. If needed, take a pause to ensure the work is being done properly in a safe manner.
We also have a pause program. We stop and take a pause to identify any new hazards that have not been maybe noted or got missed. We take time and pause and try to identify any new changes that has happened while we've been working.
Spotting equipment. Spotting equipment or laying the equipment on the ground is done prior to hammering the equipment together. This is to make sure there is enough equipment such as flow lines, 90s, and valves to complete the rig up. If additional equipment is needed, the job coordinator will contact the yard supervisor and request what is needed. Rigging up the equipment. In this part, we will talk about the lockout tagout process, breaking containment on the wellhead, hammering the piping and equipment together, installing the restraint system, installing oil and gas lines, and verifying the emergency shutdown system, also known as the ESD system. Prior to rigging up and putting any equipment together, the job coordinator or PIC, known as the authorized worker, will conduct the lockout tagout process. He makes sure the well is shut in. He applies the lockout tagout devices. He releases all stored energy and confirms the isolation. All workers in the area will be notified of the lockout tagout that is taking place. Breaking containment. After completing the lockout tagout, workers will break containment on the wellhead to connect the equipment. A 4-gas monitor should be utilized to detect any LELs or poisonous gases that may be present. Workers should always stay upwind when breaking containment. Hammering the piping and equipment together. Equipment in a standard package may include a sand trap, a manifold, a separator, a scrubber, and a flare. If using a sledgehammer to connect unions, workers should leave a buffer zone and give plenty of room to the person hammering and not get in the line of fire. This part of the job is very labor intense. Workers should take breaks and drink plenty of fluids to stay hydrated. If you observe someone working unsafe, take the time to conduct an observation and intervene if you have to. By doing this, you are being your brother's keeper. Installing the restraint system. After all the equipment is connected and has been tightened, a restraint system will be installed. The purpose of the restraint system is to keep pipes and other equipment from becoming projectiles in case of an explosion. Installing oil and gas lines. The oil and gas lines are 3-inch and 4-inch pipes and are very heavy. These lines are installed hands-free, meaning a mechanical device is used to maneuver these pipes. These lines will be connected to the pipeline. Testing. In this part, we'll talk about two different tests: the function test and the hydro test. These two tests are extremely important to the safety of our workers. If either of these tests fail, flowback operations will not start until the issue is resolved. Function test of the emergency shutdown, or ESD. This test is usually performed by the job coordinator or the operator. This test is to verify that the ESD system is working properly. Hydro test of the equipment. The hydro test is one of the last things that takes place in a flowback rig-up. Once all equipment is connected and the restraint system is installed, workers will walk the line to make sure everything looks right. A pump will be utilized to run water with pressure through the piping. If any leaks are detected, they fix it and run another test until no leaks are found.
This concludes our flowback video. We hope this flowback video has provided you a good understanding of a day in the life of a flowback rig-up worker. If you have any questions, please do not hesitate to ask. Thank you.